Rick Grimes, the sheriff, the coma guy, the man who woke up to a world full of walkers and decided, yeah, I'll fix this. Rick starts off soft-spoken, but give him a few seasons and suddenly he's biting throats, talking to ghost phones, and growing a beard that could lead a nation. He tries being a farmer. Doesn't last. Tries being peaceful. Also doesn't last. What does last? His ability to dramatically stare into the distance after every kill. He loses his wife, his best friend, and a lot of moral high ground. But he somehow stays the center of the apocalypse, until a helicopter yoinks him away and the show pretends that's normal. Shane Walsh, Rick's best friend, also Rick's worst friend. While Rick's in a coma, Shane's out here playing house with Lori and acting like the world ending means all rules go out the window. And to be fair, he was a great survivor, but also a massive problem. Paranoid, sweaty, always shouting, Shane was basically a walking red flag with a gun. He didn't last long, but his chaotic energy set the tone for the whole show. And let's be honest, when he shaved his head, you knew it was game over. Lori Grimes. Lori gets a lot of hate. Some of it's deserved. Some also deserved. She went from mourning Rick to, oh, you're alive. But she did try to hold things together in the early chaos. She gets pregnant, starts a love triangle, and constantly flip-flops between Rick, keep Carl safe, and Carl needs to grow up. Her death during childbirth is brutal and unforgettable, mostly because Carl has to shoot her before she turns. Yep, that happened. Carl Grimes started as Stay in the House Carl and ended as a one-eyed philosopher. Carl grew up in the apocalypse, literally. He went from annoying kid to teenage warrior to the moral backbone of the show. His death shocked everyone, mostly because it wasn't from a brutal fight or dramatic betrayal, but a random walker bite. Still, his final message about peace changed everything. Carl's arc was messy, iconic, and weirdly beautiful. Carol Pelletier, from quiet housewife to full-blown war machine. Carol started as a background character and became one of the most complex, dangerous, and unpredictable people on the show. She's blown people up, executed children, disappeared into the woods, come back stronger, and still managed to bake cookies for the group. Her arc is pain-wrapped in survival instincts, with a side of, don't ever cross me. If Daryl is the soul of the show, Carol is its ghost, gentle one minute, savage the next. Morgan Jones, the man who can't decide between all life is precious and I will stab everyone in this room. Morgan was Rick's first post-coma contact, then vanished into madness, staff training, and monk vibes. His whole arc is about wrestling with morality, and also somehow crossing over into Fear the Walking Dead. He's died emotionally about 4 times, but physically, still going. Last seen walking off into a different series with a 1,000-yard stare. Andrea. Andrea was supposed to be one of the greats. She had a gun, she had drive, she had the worst decision-making in the entire show. After surviving the CDC explosion, she slowly spirals into a series of bad boyfriends and worse choices, like trusting the governor, regretting trusting the governor, and being killed because of the governor. She tries to play peacekeeper, but ends up locked in a room with a slowly turning Milton who bites her. Sad, because she could have been awesome. Dale Horvath, RV guy, wisdom guy, suspicious of everyone, and somehow the only one with morals for a solid season and a half. Dale spends most of his time trying to stop the group from turning into a Mad Max cult. He lectures a lot, yes, but in a your grandpa's disappointed in you kind of way. He's the first real conscience of the group, and of course that means he had to die. His guts get ripped out by a walker, and the show immediately gets darker. Glenn Rhee started as a pizza delivery guy, ended as the heart of the entire group. Glenn was fast, smart, and always the first to volunteer for a dumbly heroic mission. He crawled through sewers, raided tanks, and somehow survived about 50 near deaths before the one that broke everyone. You know the one, the bat scene, Lucille, eyeball, trauma. I'm crying just thinking about it. Glenn's charm was his hope. In a world full of screaming maniacs, he stayed kind, funny, and loyal, which of course meant he was doomed. Maggie Green, farm girl turned apocalypse queen. Maggie's journey is basically, watch my entire family die, now I'm in charge. She goes from naive and sweet to burn it all down if I have to, real fast, especially after Glenn. That death turns her into a vengeance-fueled, quietly terrifying leader. She runs Hilltop, takes no nonsense, and has the world's coldest stare reserved for Negan. If Glenn was hope, Maggie is the payback. Herschel Green, the legless legend. Herschel started as the guy keeping zombies in his barn like they were sick relatives, which wasn't great. But once he accepted reality, he became the group's moral compass. Doctor, advisor, occasional beard of wisdom. Even after losing his leg, he hobbled around like the team's Yoda, until the governor chopped off his head during peace talks. Still one of the most shocking, brutal exits in the whole series. Beth Green, singer, babysitter, then briefly a breakout character before being written out with a shrug. Beth's arc is weird. She goes from background extra to emotionally unstable to quietly badass in like 3 episodes. Her time with Daryl gave her depth. Her death at Grady Memorial Hospital, shot mid-trade deal, gave fans whiplash. One of the most random endings, and still debated to this day. Daryl Dixon, the man, the myth, the silent guy with a crossbow and a lot of emotional baggage. Daryl wasn't even in the comics, yet somehow became the fan favorite. He grunts his way through the apocalypse, bonding with Carol, Beth, dogs, and eventually motorcycles more than people. He barely talks, but when he does, it's either profound or unintelligible. Everyone around him dies, and he just keeps trucking. Crossbow bolts and heartbreak. That's the brand. Merle Dixon, Daryl's older brother and absolute chaos on 2 legs. Merle starts as a racist loudmouth handcuffed to a rooftop and somehow gets more unhinged from there. He returns with a metal bayonet for a hand and a whole attitude problem. Merle is violent, erratic, and weirdly loyal in the worst way possible. He's the guy you don't want at your apocalypse party, but you kind of need. His final act? Going solo to take out the governor. Doesn't go well, but hey, points for effort. Michonne. You know you're cool when your entrance involves dragging armless walkers through the woods. Michonne barely spoke at first, just showed up with a katana and a permanent scowl. But over time, she became the emotional center of the group. She bonded with Carl, fell in love with Rick, and casually decapitated villains along the way. Her exit involved ancient naval maps and a hint that Rick was still alive. Because of course it did. The governor. If Negan is charming evil, the governor is unsettling, simmering evil. He looks normal. He talks nice. Then you realize he's keeping zombie heads in aquariums and treating his undead daughter like a pet. He massacres people, burns communities, and gives some of the best unhinged monologues in the show. Bonus points for pulling off an eye patch and still being terrifying. Tyrese Williams. Big guy, big heart, big hammer. Tyrese was less about killing walkers and more about saving humanity, even when humanity really didn't deserve it. He saved Judith, mourned hard, and always tried to do the right thing, which naturally meant he didn't last. His death is slow, dreamlike, and full of hallucinations, because even in death, Tyrese couldn't catch a break. Sasha Williams? Sniper, strategist, grief specialist. Sasha had one of the most intense arcs, losing her brother, losing lovers, and finally deciding to take down Negan by turning herself into walker bait. That's commitment. She goes from secondary character to MVP in the span of a few seasons. And her death? Delivered in a coffin, as a zombie. That's art. Jesus. Long hair, chill vibes, ninja-level skills. Jesus showed up doing parkour and dodging walkers like he was in the Matrix. He was smart, diplomatic, and the only guy who could roundhouse kick a zombie in skinny jeans. As Hilltop's ambassador, he tried to keep peace between every group, which in this show is a death sentence. And yeah, he died doing what he did best, helping. Ambushed by a whisperer, taken out mid-move, gone too soon and honestly underused. Gregory. Hilltop's worst mistake. Gregory was a spineless, self-serving weasel who somehow managed to stay in charge way longer than anyone wanted. He lied, begged, betrayed, and kissed up to whoever had the biggest gun that week. When Maggie took over Hilltop, he tried to poison her. So she hanged him, publicly. And it was one of the most satisfying finally moments in the entire show. Gregory was the human version of a wet sock. Abraham Ford. If anyone could punch a walker into submission, it was this guy. Abraham was a one-liner machine with a red mustache and zero patience. He showed up mid-series with Rosita, Eugene, and a plan to save the world, which turned out to be a lie. Still, Abraham stuck around as muscle, comic relief, and the occasional deep thinker. His exit? Brutal. Lucille. Again. But he left us with a final quote so iconic they censored it on TV. You know the one. Rosita Espinosa. Rosita came in as part of Abraham's group and stayed way longer than anyone expected. She was tough, resourceful, and often underwritten. Despite that, she got some solid arcs. Romance, motherhood, revenge, and even co-parenting with a guy she didn't love. Peak apocalypse. Her final season gave her a decent send-off, including a heroic rescue and a tragic walker bite, one of the few deaths that actually felt earned. Eugene Porter. Mullet. Awkward speech. Secretly a liar. Eugene showed up pretending to have the cure for the apocalypse, but over time, the dude grew on people. He invented radio systems, helped take down the Whisperers, and even got a love story with fake Stephanie. He's basically what happens when Comic-Con survives the end of the world. Awkward, smart, and weirdly reliable. Tara Chandler. Tara started off as a background soldier and slowly became the group's moral support system, always cracking jokes, trying to keep spirits up, and occasionally reminding everyone not to be total monsters. She joined the fight against the Saviors, helped lead Hilltop, and was unceremoniously killed off-screen by Alpha. Brutal. The show didn't give her the farewell she deserved, but fans remember. Gabriel Stokes. Started as the worst priest in history, locked his congregation out of the church, cried a lot, and was generally useless. But wow, did he turn it around? Gabriel went from coward to cold-blooded walker killer, lost an eye, gained a spine, and became a trusted leader. It only took years of failure, multiple breakdowns, and a lot of near-death experiences. Character growth. Bob Stuckey. If you remember Bob, you probably also remember the grill scene. He was a former Army medic with a drinking problem, a good heart, and the absolute worst luck. He finally found happiness with Sasha, only to get bitten by a walker and partially eaten by cannibals. Yes, in that order. His legacy, optimism, trauma, and delivering the line tainted meat like a boss. Gone too soon, but never forgotten. Gareth. Leader of Terminus and full-time cannibal. Gareth was soft-spoken, polite, and had a very clear rule. If you can't beat the world, eat it. He and his group turned a sanctuary into a slaughterhouse, lured survivors in, and made snacks out of them. Didn't last long, though. Rick and the gang handled that with some serious overkill. Judith Grimes. Rick's maybe kid, but definitely apocalypse royalty. Born in a prison, raised by a katana-wielding warrior, carries a gun and a sword like it's completely normal. Judith basically inherited the plot armor of every main character combined. She's wise beyond her years, wears Carl's hat, and regularly lectures adults on morality. At this point, she's survived more trauma than most full-grown characters and still manages to be the most emotionally mature person in the room. Aaron, recruiter for Alexandria. Also, beard goals. Aaron showed up clean, polite, and completely not suspicious, which made everyone suspicious. But he proved himself quickly, helping the group find safety and turning into a full-blown warrior after losing his arm. He's like the Apocalypse HR rep who became a Viking. Seriously, the beard, the mace hand, the "I'm still hopeful" speeches. We love him. Negan. You either hate him, fear him, or, weirdly, love him.
Hot diggity dog! This place is magnificent.
Negan showed up swinging, literally, with Lucille, a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. He made his entrance by turning Glenn and Abraham into pulp, then smiled about it. But plot twist. The guy somehow redeems himself. He goes from warlord to prisoner to grumpy antihero, bonding with Judith, killing Alpha, and awkwardly hanging around Maggie. Negan is charisma, violence, and guilt all jammed into one leather jacket. Enid. Teenager with trust issues and a thing for climbing trees. Enid went from lone wolf survivor to medical trainee to part of the Hilltop leadership crew. She had a soft spot for Carl, an awkward romance with Alden, and a habit of closing her emotions off with the phrase JSS, just survive somehow. Her death? Off-screen, heads-on pikes, special, because of course it was. Deanna Monroe, former congresswoman turned Alexandria leader. Deanna was the embodiment of pre-apocalypse logic in a post-apocalypse world, which worked until it didn't. She wanted structure, order, interviews, rules. Then people got eaten, her family fell apart, and she finally picked up a weapon. She died scribbling future plans on blueprints while bleeding out. Spencer Monroe, Deanna's son, and proof that nepotism doesn't work during the apocalypse. Spencer whined, schemed, and tried way too hard to be a leader, but had none of the charisma or survival instinct. He literally tried to convince Negan to overthrow Rick, and got gutted mid-conversation, like full-blown Mortal Kombat fatality. Moral of the story? Don't try to backstab someone while the actual villain is listening. Tobin. Remember Tobin? Probably not. He was Alexandria's version of that guy who's just kinda there. He built stuff, had a brief thing with Carol, and generally tried to help without ever really standing out. Then he got bit during the Savior War, turned, and took out a few people before someone finally put him down. A quiet death for a quiet guy. Jesse Anderson. Jessie was the hairstylist turned hardened survivor who caught Rick's eye. She had an abusive husband, 2 kids, and a very short-lived romance with the main character. When walkers invaded Alexandria, she got frozen in fear and eaten while holding Carl's hand, leading to Rick chopping off her arm. Yeah, that scene messed everyone up, including Carl's face. Ron Anderson, Jesse's teenage son and full-time sulker. Ron never liked Rick, never trusted Carl, and never put the safety on his gun. He's basically every angsty teen stereotype, just with access to firearms. His big moment? Accidentally shooting Carl in the eye right after dying himself. Truly a double disaster. Sam Anderson, the youngest Anderson and possibly the most fragile child in Walking Dead history. Sam couldn't handle the apocalypse at all. He froze during the Walker herd escape and got eaten because he whispered "Mom" one too many times, which triggered the chain reaction that got Jesse and Ron killed too. So yeah, rough day for the Anderson family. Denise Cloyd, Alexandria's doctor. Nervous, awkward, but actually pretty capable once she got going. Denise stepped up big time when they needed medical help, and her relationship with Tara gave her more depth. But just when she started gaining confidence, bam! Arrow to the head. Courtesy of Dwight during a totally casual conversation about soda. One of the most random and frustrating deaths in the series. And that's saying something. Heath. Now you see him, now you don't. Heath was a supply runner who showed promise. Tactical, smart, and loyal. Then he went on a run with Tara, vanished off a bridge, and that's it. Seriously. He disappeared in Season 7 and never came back. Apparently traded to the CRM off-screen, but the show treated it like he just ghosted everyone. Mystery level? Unresolved. Dwight. Burnt face, crossbow thief, complicated past. Dwight started as a savior loyal to Negan, but his arc was one long redemption tour. He betrayed Negan, helped the Alexandrians, and got banished instead of killed, which, honestly, was generous. He reappeared in Fear the Walking Dead, still brooding and still searching for his wife, Sherry. Dwight was a classic, I made terrible choices, but please root for me anyway character. And somehow, it worked. Sherry, Dwight's wife, Daryl's escape helper, and a long-running plot device. Sherry married Negan to save Dwight. Yikes. Then escaped, leaving notes and mystery behind. She eventually shows up in Fear the Walking Dead, leading a resistance group and reminding everyone she's more than just a backstory. Low screen time in TWD, but high emotional impact. Simon, Negan's number 2, and honestly, sometimes scarier than Negan himself. Simon was all about brute force, zero diplomacy. He had big, let's just wipe them all out energy, and a mustache that screamed unstable. He was the guy who wanted to take over from the bad guy, and almost did. But then he got choked out in a one-on-one brawl with Negan. Loud rise, brutal fall, classic apocalypse power trip. Ezekiel, the guy with the tiger. Yes, really. Ezekiel was a zookeeper turned kingdom leader who spoke like Shakespeare and led with unmatched optimism. His theatrical speeches and big heart gave people hope. And then the apocalypse crushed that hope repeatedly. He lost his kingdom, his son, his pet tiger Shiva, R.I.P., and got cancer. Still, he survived it all, even helped build a better world by the end. King stuff. Jerry, Ezekiel's right-hand man and the apocalypse's resident teddy bear. Jerry had jokes, loyalty, and a battle axe. What more could you want? He helped lead the kingdom, protected the squad, and somehow stayed upbeat the whole time. He was like the group's emotional support tank. And in a show where everyone's brooding, Jerry just wanted to laugh, love, and smash some walkers. A legend. Jadis, trash queen turned secret agent. Jadis started as the leader of a group that talked like badly programmed AI and lived in a junkyard. Then she cleaned up, got a real name, Anne, and joined Alexandria. But plot twist, she was working with the CRM. She traded Rick for a ticket out, then reappeared in World Beyond. Weirdest glow-up in the franchise, and proof that speaking in broken sentences gets you nowhere. Alpha, whisperer leader, skin mask enthusiast. Bad mom, Alpha redefined villainy in the show, calm, calculated, and fully terrifying. She led a cult that lived among walkers and delivered one of the show's most brutal scenes, the Pike deaths. She also shaved her head, whispered a lot, and made Carol's life a living hell. Eventually, Negan took her out, but not before she broke the group's spirit. Beta, Alpha's right-hand man and possibly the tallest person in the apocalypse. Beta was silent, massive, and wore part of Alpha's face after she died. Totally normal behavior. Before the fall, he was a famous musician, which added some spice to his backstory. He led the Whisperers after Alpha, but lost his mind in the process. His end? Swarmed by walkers while hallucinating. Metal. Lydia, Alpha's daughter and the definition of "please don't turn out like your mom." Lydia escaped the Whisperers, tried to fit in, and bonded with Henry, R.I.P. She struggled with guilt, identity, and the fact that everyone kind of hated her on sight. But she stuck around, helped during the Whisperer War, and slowly became part of the family. Still haunted, still tough, still trying. Connie. Connie was a breath of fresh air, smart, resourceful, and one of the most capable survivors in the group. Also, she's deaf, which the show actually handled really well. Her scenes had tension, style, and more heart than most. She rescued babies, took on walkers in a haunted house, and shared an unspoken maybe romance with Daryl. After being trapped in a cave, long story, she survived on pure grit. One of the best late series additions, hands down, Kelly, Connie's younger sister and fiercely protective. Kelly stepped up big time after Connie went missing, joining the fight and proving herself as both a scout and a fighter. She's also hard of hearing and part of the show's most consistent sibling bond. Kelly doesn't always get major storylines, but when she's on screen, she's grounded, loyal, and always ready to throw hands. Yumiko, lawyer turned warrior turned Commonwealth diplomat. Yumiko arrived with the Magna Group and quickly rose through the ranks of Alexandria's chaos. She's sharp, skeptical, and one of the few people who could go toe-to-toe with Pamela Milton in a courtroom. While her arc sometimes got sidelined, she brought a much-needed, we actually need laws energy to the apocalypse, which, let's be honest, was long overdue. Magna, rebellious, loyal, and never fully trusting. Magna came in with a rough edge and kept it. She had a rocky romance with Yumiko, questioned every leader, and always gave off, "I don't need your help" vibes, even when she definitely did. Got stuck in a cave, fought in a war, and still made it out swinging. If the apocalypse needed punks with principles, Magna delivered. Leah Shaw, Daryl's surprise love interest and former Reaper. Leah was a loner, then part of a paramilitary murder cult, then back to loner again. Her relationship with Daryl was weird, full of trust issues, betrayal, and sad eye contact. Eventually, she turned full villain and tried to assassinate Maggie. Daryl had to end it, literally. Leah's story was intense, short, and definitely made fans argue. A walking red flag with military training. Luke, resident bard of the apocalypse. Luke loved music, collecting relics, and talking about art while everyone else was stabbing walkers. He was cheerful, curious, and constantly reminding people that humanity mattered, even if it was through records and violins. Unfortunately, all that positivity didn't save him. His death in the final season was heartbreaking and a brutal reminder that optimism has a short shelf life in this universe. Elijah, masked warrior with ninja vibes, mysterious, deadly, and always ready to throw down. But once the mask came off, he turned out to be a quiet, anxious guy dealing with serious trauma. Still, he proved himself again and again, especially during battles with the Reapers. He's like a mix of action hero and awkward little brother, which totally works. Princess, bright hair, big energy, and a complete shift in tone. Princess joined the group late, but made an unforgettable entrance, riding solo in a post-apocalyptic city while monologuing like a sitcom character. Underneath the chaos, though, was someone deeply traumatized and fiercely loyal. She went from comic relief to essential crew, even helping infiltrate the Commonwealth. Also, her name's Princess. Because why not? Mercer, the Commonwealth's head of security and living brick wall. Mercer's armored up, plays by the book, and slowly realizes the book is garbage. He starts off stoic and skeptical, but eventually flips sides and leads a resistance. Also, he's in a relationship with Princess. Yes, really, and it totally works. Big man, big heart, big red armor. Instantly iconic. Maxine Stephanie Mercer, Mercer's sister and the real voice behind Eugene's radio romance. Maxine is smart, composed, and much more grounded than her dramatic brother. She helps Eugene uncover the Commonwealth's corruption. She's one of the few characters in the endgame with brains, patience, and plot relevance, which, in this show, is practically a superpower. Pamela Milton, politician, matriarch, final boss of class warfare. Pamela ran the Commonwealth with an iron smile and a firm belief in hierarchy. She wasn't a cartoon villain, just the exact kind of person who'd survive by rebuilding the world exactly how it was before. And that's what made her dangerous, cold, calculating, and casually corrupt. Her downfall was slow, public, and well-deserved.